Amazing presentation by Tom Larkin from Ireland, who's worked at the bedside as a clinical engineer on intensive care teams for 25 years. And he's got longer seminars, webinars on things that clinical engineers should know about ventilators. So he's going to share, maybe not right this moment, but links to how we can join that training. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I think I just refer back to a point you made about clinical engineering in general and opportunities to get involved more clinically. So I think there's an opportunity now, there's a big sort of an open goal, if you like, for clinical engineers to move more into the clinical environment and not be based somewhere else in the hospital, come up whenever there's a problem with the ventilator, but get involved with the clinical side of it. There's a huge opportunity there now for people with an interest to do that. And I think that's where the profession needs to go, if you like, into the future, get more clinically involved with the teams, embedded in the units that they're working in, and become more clinical as well as technical and scientific.
And we, you know, the IFMBE Clinical Engineering Division is very involved with credentialing, certification, registration around the world for our profession. And we do see a trend, as Tom just said. Many of you know that in Japan, 50% of their time is super users of high-tech equipment. So there's but not only in Japan, other countries, there is a trend towards clinical engineers being more involved at the bedside than historically there. And I know Dr. David's written about the physicians and nurses, not the nurses, but the physicians are moving further away from the bedside, and so the engineers may want to move closer to the bedside in many situations.
And that's really important, that we get away from what I used to call the sort of screwdriver and test-lung approach to solving problems with ventilators, where the engineer was called up, the alarms are going off, the patient's hopping off the bed, what's wrong? They stick the test lung on, so ventilator's fine, goes back on the patient, and there's still massive problems. So we have to move on from just that role and really get involved and get more knowledgeable about the application of the technology, and, as I say, integrated with the teams.
Thanks, Tom. Are there other panelists that want to respond to questions they've heard before we give Adriana some closing comments?
There was a question, or mostly comment, from Brazil about definition of a product. What is a ventilator? Essentially, mechanical ventilator is about 100 years old, invented during the need for iron lungs, and then continue on from that. And now we're changing definition, because if you have ambu bag with some compression plates around it, is that referred to as a ventilator? And we need to realize that this season of such a pandemic era is changing the definition of a product, as well as the regulation and specification. So stay up with that, make sure that you understand the changes in emergency use and other standards and guidance, and that your role is to still make sure that the product is safe.
In fact, Dr. David, the biggest response in all the 5 polls was safe use. So I know we'll try to write up more comments about that in our synthesis. Go ahead.
Hello, this is Tomo. It's a part of the Japanese clinical engineer, and we are using lots of the equipment, and included for the respiratory things. And I'm thinking that we needed know how to use the machine, but also we need to see the patient. So as we think about the patient lung problem, what's going on, and also how can we maintain? We have to think about both sides. So Japanese clinical engineer has a lot of experience, and we can be happy to share with you guys too. So if you guys have a question, please talk to the Japanese people too. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. CED can help facilitate that. Thanks, Tomo.
So my other comment on the discussion, very interesting, going on before, rising from Yadin about and Toby about the fact that FDA clearance doesn't mean that the device is effective. eventually that is just safe, but not at all effective. Well, this is all going to change in Europe now with the new regulation. They have introduced this criteria, and the medical device can only be CE marked if it proves to meet and to deliver the performance which is intended by the manufacturer. So things are changing, and now if it was not for the COVID, this would have been starting to be enforced by 26 of this month, so in 1 week time. But now this has been delayed to 1 year time. But in 1 year time, everything CE market will have to prove not only to be safe, but also to be as effective as intended by the manufacturer. I think this is a huge revolution. This is a great result of biomedical engineers and clinical engineer community in Europe. And I can envisage that FDA will follow up on that.
So Leandro, the FDA is already including safe and effective use. So that's already included within the FDA regulatory process. What the point that you're making that is so important is that we need to read those specifications to understand the intended use. Because if we assume that the ventilator is intended to do something different than what we want to do for the patient, then all the argument about safe and effectiveness is going by the wayside because it's not what intended. So that's why I keep saying, make sure you read the manuals, make sure you read the standards and the guidelines. But you're making a good point.
And we'll try to provide as much clarity as we can in our white papers, our summary documents here in a couple weeks to these challenging questions. One more question or comment from the panelists before we turn to Adriana, please, at 6 minutes after. All right, well, thank you very much. Adriana? We've got you unmuted, I think.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much to IFMBE. Thank you for all the panelists, all the participants, all the experts. We are very grateful for your participation, and we look forward to having another series maybe later once we've done the training material or other things. So let's see what comes next. But please, our best recommendation is please stay safe. Please share that this virus is dangerous and that we really need to take care of it. And the best use of the technology that we need is to be thinking always on the patient's benefit, you know, and the patient's safety. So if we're doubting about something, better don't use it. No? So I think that's just, let's stay in the safe place, and the best wishes to all, and many thanks to everybody. And please look into the WHO website. We will be updating information, and then also through IFMBE, I guess we'll be sharing it with all of you. And if you have a training material and so, please send it to Caliroy, to Tom, because we couldn't capture your emails or phones or something of who has information. Please share it so that we can start using it for training. Thank you very much to all. Stay safe. And we have a great work to do as clinical engineers. Let's do it together. Thank you.
Thank you, Adriana, and thank you, panelists, and thank you, audience. And we'll be talking to you again soon. Bye for now.
Okay, guys. Adios.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Ciao, grazie.
Bye. Bye-bye.